The start of the 2026 season presents a very different situation for Lewis Hamilton compared to 12 months ago. After a difficult debut campaign with Ferrari, Hamilton now begins a new season with a car that appears significantly more competitive and a team that looks better prepared. The opening round at the Australian Grand Prix will be the first real indication of whether those changes are enough to put him back into the championship fight. The SF-26 has shown several strengths that translate directly into race performance. The car appears to have very strong traction in low-speed corners, allowing the drivers to reach full throttle earlier than their rivals. Combined with improved stability and a wider setup window, Ferrari now seems better placed to extract consistent performance across different conditions. Hamilton himself also looks more connected to this car. His involvement in the development of the SF-26 means many of its characteristics reflect his preferences. That stands in clear contrast to last season, when he often struggled to adapt to the behavior of the car. It is still too early to draw firm conclusions about Ferrari's true position relative to its rivals. Several leading teams are likely to have held performance in reserve during testing, but based on the available evidence, Ferrari appears to have the technical and organizational foundation required to start the season as a serious contender. The key question is whether the Hamilton-Ferrari combination is genuinely strong enough to fight at the front from Australia onward. If you want to understand whether Ferrari really has what it takes this season, consider subscribing, because in this video we're going to break down all the evidence in detail. There is a consistent theme running through Ferrari's winter preparation that helps explain why expectations around Hamilton feel different this time. The team's 2025 campaign was undermined by a car that neither Hamilton nor Charles Leclerc could fully trust, particularly on corner entry and through inconsistent balance changes. The SF-26 appears to address those weaknesses directly. Both drivers have indicated that the car is more predictable and easier to place, and that alone changes the baseline for performance. During testing, Hamilton's program showed a clear progression. Early runs suggested he was still adapting, but by the end of the session, he appeared far more comfortable with the behavior of the car. Observers noted that he was visibly experimenting with different approaches through the corners, refining how he attacked entry phases as the team improved the setup. Hamilton himself described feeling more connected to the car, partly because of the role he played in shaping its development. This sense that the car now reflects the driver's needs is important. Hamilton's struggles in recent years have often been interpreted as a decline in performance, but several figures within the sport have suggested otherwise. Will Buxton argued that Hamilton did not suddenly lose his ability, pointing out how abruptly his competitiveness changed when the previous generation of cars arrived. Buxton believes the new regulations could allow Hamilton to return to the level he showed earlier in the decade, and has even suggested that Hamilton will be winning races again. Testing form alone does not guarantee results, but Ferrari's performance indicators extend beyond headline lap times. One of the most significant strengths identified in the data is traction. Analysis of the Bahrain runs suggested the SF-26 allows its drivers to apply full throttle several meters earlier than key rivals in low-speed corners. That advantage translates directly into acceleration zones, which are critical under the new regulations. This characteristic also explains Ferrari's eye-catching practice starts during testing. On several occasions, the car accelerated so effectively off the line that it appeared capable of gaining multiple positions before the first braking zone. The underlying explanation lies in a combination of mechanical grip and efficient power delivery, rather than any single isolated factor. Aerodynamic innovation is another major part of the picture. Ferrari introduced a number of unusual solutions during testing, most notably a rotating rear wing concept in which the upper element flips through a full rotation when activated. The intention is to reduce drag significantly on the straights while maintaining sufficient stability when the system closes again. Technical observers were struck not only by the concept itself, but by the execution. Sam Collins noted that integrating such a mechanism into the structure of the wing requires extremely precise engineering. Some rivals are believed to be exploring similar ideas, but replicating Ferrari's solution is expected to be difficult. Another distinctive feature is the aerodynamic plate positioned near the exhaust outlet. This component appears to manipulate the flow of exhaust gases in a way that enhances aerodynamic performance, particularly in medium and low-speed corners. Collins explained that the concept is closely linked to the internal layout of Ferrari's gearbox, which makes it hard for teams using different architectures to copy. Ferrari also introduced a larger exhaust flap mounted around the rear crash structure. This design required specific approval from the FIA and even influenced the layout of the gearbox and differential. The intended purpose is to improve diffuser efficiency, but the testing data suggested additional benefits. Tyre wear improved significantly after the flap was introduced, and the car became more stable in the middle phase of corners. Taken together, these developments suggest a design approach that is both ambitious and carefully targeted. Tom Clarkson pointed out that the willingness to introduce multiple innovations is a sign that Ferrari's internal environment has changed. He suggested that the absence of a so-called culture of fear has allowed engineers to take more risks and pursue creative solutions. That organizational shift may be just as important as the technical gains. Under Fred Vasseur, Ferrari appears to be operating with greater clarity and direction. The team has focused heavily on the 2026 regulations for more than a year, and the resulting car reflects a deliberate attempt to solve specific weaknesses rather than simply chase peak performance. Confidence among the drivers has followed naturally. Charles Leclerc's reaction to the SF-26 has been particularly telling. Several observers in the paddock have suggested that he has been trying to hide how optimistic he feels about the package. There is a sense that Ferrari may have interpreted the new regulations effectively, even if the final competitive order remains uncertain. That uncertainty is an important part of the story. Mercedes is widely expected to be strong under the new power unit rules, and some believe it may still hold an advantage on the engine side. McLaren and Red Bull are also assumed to have more performance in reserve than they showed during testing. Guenther Steiner has warned against drawing conclusions too early, arguing that Ferrari often looks competitive in testing without necessarily sustaining that level once racing begins. From his perspective, Ferrari should be considered part of the leading group, rather than the clear favourite. Ruth Buscombe offered a similar caution, noting that Ferrari has historically tended to run higher engine modes during pre-season sessions than some of its competitors. That approach can make the team appear stronger than it ultimately proves to be once the season starts. Even with those reservations, the overall picture remains encouraging. Ferrari ended testing with the fastest lap time and strong long-run pace, while reliability appeared solid throughout the program. The team has also produced a car that both drivers describe as more comfortable and predictable than its predecessor. For Hamilton, this combination could be decisive. His first season with Ferrari was shaped by adaptation difficulties and inconsistent performance, but the conditions entering 2026 look far more favourable. The regulations have changed, the car suits him better, and the team appears more aligned around a clear technical direction. There are still unresolved details. Hamilton is entering the season without a permanent race engineer in place, which could complicate communication at a time when energy management strategies are becoming increasingly complex. But this remains one of the few obvious weaknesses in an otherwise promising picture. The broader context also matters. The 2026 regulations introduce smaller and lighter cars with a much greater reliance on electrical energy. Drivers will have to manage deployment carefully throughout each lap, making efficiency and drivability more important than ever. Ferrari's apparent strength in traction and stability could therefore prove especially valuable. All of this creates a scenario that would have seemed unlikely only a year ago. Instead of trying simply to recover from a disappointing season, Hamilton now has a realistic opportunity to re-establish himself as a contender. The early signs suggest Ferrari has given him the tools to do so. Whether that potential translates into victories will only become clear once the season begins. Testing can provide strong hints, but the first competitive sessions in Australia will reveal far more about the true balance of power. So, the real question is this: are we about to see the start of a genuine Hamilton title challenge with Ferrari, or will the familiar doubts return once the racing begins? Let me know what you think. Is Hamilton really back in the championship fight, or is Ferrari's testing form misleading? Write your opinion in the comments.